It's August 22nd. It is a beautiful afternoon in Roosevelt Park, and I am here with...
I'm Lou Vellucci.
And where are you running?
I'm running in the 5th District, the northernmost district of New Jersey. I've been there practically all my life, except for the time I spent away in the service in Europe. Other than that, it's been my home, that area.
Oh, Mr. Vellucci, tell us a little about yourself and how you got here.
Okay, actually, it's interesting. As you get older, your life takes paths you don't really expect. So, yes, I did, and you young people can do that too. I did finance my education through the military, and therefore I was involved in a service ethic at a young age, had to obviously serve in the Army. And then I got into the civilian workforce when the Army was, I wasn't needed at that juncture, so I gladly went back as a civilian. And then what happened about 12 years ago, I got involved in nonprofit in New Jersey, worked with a lot of intelligent people, actually supporting animals. Animal Protection League of New Jersey, specifically with black. And then I've said, let's take it a step further. So not only try to protect the environment, but with my military experience, my experience in the classroom, my experience on Wall Street, I said, well, let me just get involved in politics. And 2010, I got the paperwork, so I feel very comfortable running. I had thought about it in 2010, didn't get it together. One thing led to another. 2020, I ran. I ran in 2020 with a shoestring budget and just a few supporters. I think we did pretty well considering the time and effort, that we were allowed to put into it.
So you mentioned your time in the armed forces.
Yes, sir.
How has that time kind of shaped your outlook on life?
Okay. Anyone, God bless America, we're all volunteers. So anyone who was in the armed forces is already a volunteer.
Right.
But then you go and you think you know it all, but then you take service a little higher. And one of the key themes, I was talking with my number one here, Tom, about that, discipline. Discipline, a lot of the things we need to straighten out in this country have to deal with discipline, or you call it tough love, tiger mom, whatever you want to call it. It's a very important concept, and I'm sure all you young people are very successful because of your great families and the great values instilled in your school.
Absolutely.
Or you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So, what do you think those values should be? What values should we be giving our children?
What a segue. I didn't even plan that. But actually, the name of the party we founded is called the American Values Party. So thinking about the election, we are big into gratitude, being grateful for this great country. We don't want to be too greedy. We are also into security, obviously, because if we're not secure, what else can we do, right? We have to have a secure nation, a secure community, but compassion. Let's talk about that. Right now, you young people know we need to be more compassionate to the natural world. So right now, you are in the perfect setting. This is just serendipity. We're in a park. Rather than being in some cubicle in the ivory tower trying to make decisions. So you guys know, when I graduated college, it was not as big an issue, and that's not that long ago, a couple of decades ago. It went from the Cold War to now climate change being very important. And I have to get involved in politics because it looks like we don't want to start another Cold War now, do we? So security is important as well, yeah.
Well,
fairness is another American value, and that goes along with our platform regarding our economy, taxes, et cetera, et cetera.
So you're running as an independent, obviously in a time where, with polarization, power is really held by the Republicans and the Democrats. I don't need to tell you that.
You're a genius.
What inspired you to run as an independent when it's so hard?
You're a genius. What you're basically saying is, how do you expect to win? It's not practical. But as I told you earlier before the camera started rolling, you may have the most intelligent answers and still not win.
Right.
Look at Ralph Nader. Do you like seatbelts?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay? Princeton guy, he must be pretty sharp, still going at 80-something, right? I voted for him many times. I also voted for Ross Perot, kind of an outsider. They're good Democrats, they're good Republicans, but we don't want to make a decision based on a bureaucracy. You can't do that. We want to go a la carte. Pick the best decision.
So what is your strategy to run against these two major party opponents in your race?
Values, my friend. We don't care our objective is not to win. We want to win, but we will not sacrifice our standards or our values. It's what we stand for. Better to lose and be true to your mission than to win. And for example, let me give you a practical example. We don't spend our time spending money to get elected. We read books. We read books. We study history. We try to make the best solution. And the American people are smart. The third party is coming back. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let's run this back to 2020. You ran for the first time,
Yes.
right? What did you learn from that race, and how are things different now?
Not much different, unfortunately, because I'm not independently wealthy. I'm still holding down. I'm blessed to have a great full-time job that I love my job. And by the way, if you find a job you love, you're lucky. Because sometimes, right now, I really love what I do. We provide a great service to the global community. It's enjoyable. I like it. I like going to work. So I don't really, I don't have the budget or the staff yet. You know, we do expect that this might be a process where my number one, Tom, told me, maybe this year, maybe 2024, we're a lot stronger. But we're not stopping. We're not stopping. I have a close group of people. As I also said, quality over quantity. We have some great people who advise us, who support us. It might be a small group, but they're good people.
All right. Well, let's say you win this race, right? Let's say you represent New Jersey's 5th District in Congress.
Yes, sir.
What is the first bill that you propose?
Well, our platform would circle around maybe 5 points, but let's go with the biggest three. You know what? One of the reasons we're running too is even if we don't win, our ideas are so logical and so good that we're going to help the nation and the global community with one of the other candidates picking up those ideas. You want me to run one by you right now?
Absolutely.
Check this out. You're not going to believe it. Now, you know, you smart high school students, that the population of the United States has grown over the last 100 years?
Absolutely.
Do you know we have the same number of representatives in Congress as we did roughly?
Really?
Yeah, maybe might be 100. You could Google it. We have 435. Do the math. Don't you think we need more representatives to have a more representative body? And don't tell me it's going to cost a lot of money. Probably, I don't know. I'm just estimating one congressperson, $6 million. It's nothing. Multi-trillion-dollar budget. So one of the ideas we would like is to have 900 representatives, or maybe an odd number because we can't have 1,000 even.
Yeah.
But the point being is you might see me in 2024 as well as one of the major party people I'm running against. Because we both can win. We need more representatives in the United States. That's one novel, large. And by the way, they're complaining about the Electoral College. Don't get rid of the Electoral College. How many of you are good math students?
I try my best.
You're all good, right? We talked about, in other words, if we had, it's a math problem. So the more representatives you have, the more the electoral votes will line up with the popular vote. Makes sense, right? Because if you had 1 for 1, it would line up perfectly. So that's one of, I think we have more representatives. You would also, you have not only have more representation, better representation in Congress, but you would then solve this problem they keep talking about is the person with the more popular votes. He may win or she may win, but have more popular, but less electoral votes. So that would solve that problem, double the representatives.
All right. Let's roll that back from the last question. All right. Well, you're speaking on representation. Let's talk a little bit more about representation.
Okay.
Right? How can we improve it? How can we make representatives more accountable to their constituents?
Okay, excellent question. And you probably don't even know more about it than me, but there was some recent Supreme Court decision, you must be studying politics,
Yeah, we got
that now corporations can fund political candidates.
Citizens United.
So I think there is maybe potentially a conflict of interest. I'm not saying there is one,
Right.
but we might be better just doing it the old way. And we really want the best people who are doing the right thing out there. So we don't want undue influence by commercial interests. Of course, we're all capitalists and we love business, but there has to be that balance. And I think you bring up a good point. So we need to get maybe some of those what do they call special interest groups, maybe a little bit less power. Not that they can't have some power, but maybe I have too much right now.
So, on the topic of major corporations, do you think that big monopoly powers have too much power right now, and what do you think could be done to maybe reduce that?
Excellent point. Probably you need to run a government, you need money. And America was founded on, yes, we want to have a meritocracy. It's good. Some people make more money, some people have less money. But we don't like extremism. In general, that's not good. So some of your major mega corporations, not the small business person operate, they probably should be taxed maybe a little more. This is a corporation, but this other corporation is very big. So maybe they should be taxed a little more. I think that might level the playing field. And by the way, I love international business has been fantastic for peace in the world. Okay, remember I told you, it used to be a Cold War.
Yeah.
Now we're all capitalists around the world, so that's a good thing. Of course, the cost now is environmental. We got to deal with that. However, even though we want an interconnected global economy, we still got to look out for the home team, common sense. We don't want to manufacture everything overseas. Just from a practical aspect, that doesn't really make much sense, does it?
Right. Okay, good. All right. Now, I want to zoom in on one thing you just said there.
Yes,
You
sir.
said America doesn't like extremism, right?
No.
Now, you are running a very values-driven, pretty common sense campaign, as you said,
Thank you.
right?
You said it. Thank you.
But, as we've seen recently, there's a lot of political extremism and a lot of divisive rhetoric on the rise, right? So how do you feel about America's current political situation, and what do you think can be maybe done to heal those divisions?
I'm going to flip that question a little bit. You young people, you're very intelligent, but you don't have that perspective. One of the things, the enemy is actually sometimes not the politicians, it's the media. Now, what kind of media? I'm not talking about Facebook. What I'm talking about is we used to read a lot more. I am a big fan of print media. Bill Maher is too. So if we read more, we won't get that sound bite, extremism, emotional. It's just a digital thing. You watch cable news. Come on, too.
Right.
A little bit okay, but it's over the top. We need more newspapers.
On the topic of reading, could you maybe recommend a few books that have kind of really influenced you?
You know what? There are many, and I do need to update my Ballotpedia. They asked that question. I listed about 20, 25 there. Recently, I was fortunate just by chance to come across the book About Face, and David Hackworth wrote that book. It's a very good book. It makes you appreciate peace. It makes you appreciate the sacrifice the military has made in the past, but it also leads us to say, hey, this is a great nation, and when we see something that we think we can improve, we should stand up and say that. That's a book that I recently completed. I'm reading Nimitz right now, one of the great admirals, good leadership lessons in there. From a philosophical, spiritual context, all my friends know I call the book of the decade Liquid Luck by Joseph Gallenberger. It's about building compassion and gratitude and how that not only affects the individual but the community as a whole.
Well, we talked a little bit about domestic issues. Let's shift scope, talk about foreign issues. Right. Now, you served in the armed forces.
Yes, sir.
Again, how has your kind of international perspective there been shaped by your service?
You young people don't know how lucky we were. The Cold War, I'm a product of my uncles were the World War II generation. So what happened was we were just so thankful that big war was over, that, our country did well. And then we had this Cold War, which is so unfortunate if you look at Oliver Stone, why it came about. It shouldn't have come about, this Cold War, but it did. And it lasted for a while, and then miraculously, in the late 80s, early 90s, it ended. So what we want to do is we don't want to go backwards to a Cold War mentality, East versus West. We need more diplomacy to go along with the strongest military in the world. We need more diplomacy, tonality. We need to talk nice. Yes, sir.
How do you think we can improve relations with some of our rivals in the world? If you might call it that?
Exactly what you're doing right now by talking with them. One of the novel thoughts I had was that tragedy of 9/11. I thought, and I said to myself, we have the World Trade Center. They're having a conference at the UN now. Why not right next to the World Trade Center in the other tower put the World Peace Center? where we can invite people like you, young people from all over the world, to talk. And I work with the global community on my job, and let me tell you something, we're all very much the same, all good people. There is a disconnect now between the people, all of the people, and the people making those decisions. Again, I'm blaming the media quite a bit, even more than the politicians themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about, kind of the elephant in the room in terms of international issues, Russia versus Ukraine. How do you think that can kind of be resolved?
Well, there again, I was making phone calls as a private citizen to the staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, because in general, I like our representation from Jersey, but I didn't like the tonality of what was going on. So then we should have had more talking to prevent the invasion. Now that we have that situation, I am seeing other international players help, in addition to the U.S., to end that, so that we can resolve that peacefully. I can give you a real simple solution. You got to cut a deal. It works both ways or it doesn't work. So I would say that Ukraine, the good people that they are, maybe they should look at some of those areas of the country that might be more dominated by people of Russia. Ukraine, sit down, talk, get a mediator in there. We could settle this without further bloodshed. Definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
Now let's turn to another major theme you've discussed a little bit, environmentalism, right? Caring for the world around us.
That is it, my bro. I will give you another good book. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead, no.
Read Entropy, my student, by Jeremy Rifkin, just the first 40 pages. Second law of thermodynamics. We have to understand that our economy is based on energy, and even Scientific American did an article about this many years ago. GDP. But what about the environmental cost of that economic activity? Go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's great. Do you think that current programs to, keep things green, like replacing dirty fuel with clean energy, you think that's going far enough?
We have a lot to say on that. What we need in Congress is, I'm not the expert, but I have an engineering degree, okay? We do need more engineers, no offense to all my lawyer friends, and less lawyers, because we need practical solutions. Right now, in this country, I am embarrassed that if you look at your electric bill, 60% is still carbon-based fuels. There was a front-page article in the Wall Street Journal, your utility might go up, Bill, like electricity generation by natural gas, because natural gas is going up. I am a big believer in nuclear energy. Right. Oliver Stone just jumped on the bandwagon. Way to go, Oliver Stone. He's usually not wrong. And Greenpeace, I believe, is on the bandwagon, as well as Bill Gates. So nuclear energy, if you look to France, I think 70-80% of their electricity. It's not that I want nuclear reactors, but young people, you got to make a choice. You want your refrigerators?
Nuclear.
We need more nuclear energy along with solar. In the past, they didn't know. So FDR builds all these hydro power up. Look at the problems now we have with droughts. So hydro, I would say right now we need a lot more solar panels, a lot more nuclear energy and also we have to reduce. Discipline is a key theme, okay? Air-conditioned environments all the time. And you're going to think I'm a little bit out there, but I am a little bit creative. We need a national program so that we are not encouraging farms and populations in deserts in the United States. No offense, California, but I can get my strawberries here in New Jersey. Makes sense, right?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, you talked about nuclear energy. I mean, the big problem people have with nuclear energy always is they're afraid of safety, right? I mean, they've seen Chernobyl, they've seen Fukushima.
I'll educate you on that.
Absolutely.
Both of those, okay? First of all, you can never talk about Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a different type of reactor. I think it was carbon-based versus we use modern technology. We use water-based cooling systems. I went to a meeting, Bloomberg, back in the day when I was working in a little bit of finance. And the Fukushima was really a tragedy, just bad luck, one of the worst earthquakes ever. I think it was 9.1. Those 4 reactors were on a fault, and then what happened was the tsunami put out some of the cooling elements. But normally the way those reactors work is gravity would pull down the cooling rods, will be okay.
Yeah.
So I have faith in our technology that would be, again, there's a cost to everything. So if we want electricity, we want to do it clean, I really think we need more nuclear in the mix, 100%, better than carbon fuels.
Absolutely. And I mean, other than just energy, what do you think we can do to protect environments from being harvested, forests from being cut down?
Good for you. He's like 90 years old, the British man, I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. I'm trying to think of his name, but anyway, great documentary on Netflix. Basically, he says it all. We need to leave so many areas wild. We don't need to disrupt all. There's a good eco balance in the oceans, in the world. Look at what just happened with COVID. There was probably, we struck an unfair balance against the natural world, and we got an international epidemic.
Yeah. Well, turning gears here, let's go from ecology to the economy. Now, you've mentioned your background in finance a little bit.
Yes.
How has that impacted the way you see the economy?
I would say, again, fairness is important. You can't just say you want lower taxes because then you can't fund the government, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of talk about getting deductions for state and local taxes. But you know what we're doing there? We're just saying, hey, states and local people, tax all you want. So I would be in favor maybe of raising that threshold, but we have to have some kind of limit on that. Otherwise, the states and the municipalities won't have any fiscal discipline, okay? The other thing we could do is if you look on Google at the tax tables from the last 100 years, we probably could add a few more brackets. We also could do what we said earlier, maybe some kind of sales tax or corporate income tax on the mega corporations. And a lot of things we could do. Oh, one of my biggest points is usury interest rates. If you Google our state of New Jersey, the highest interest rate allowed might be 18-19%. So you say to yourself, why are people paying 28% on their credit cards? Do you know why? Do you know why?
I don't.
They're domiciled in Joe Biden. I like Joe Biden. In his state of Delaware. They're all domiciled there. Come on. That's a gimmick. So we need to reduce high interest rates that are putting the middle class or maybe lower class people, in a bind. And that could be done. And let me tell you why. We bailed out those banks. They're making a lot of money. So they're getting 0%. Until recently, we just raised the rate. 1% interest rates. And they're charging their consumers rates above the state maximum. That's a problem. That's not fair.
Absolutely.
That would be a lot better than, for many people, than property tax rates.
Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot of issues. We also haven't talked about a wide slate of issues.
Really?
So,
more. I love it.
So let's do a little lightning round, all right? So I'm going to shout out an issue and just whatever you think and how you think we can fix it.
Okay.
All right? Gun control.
I know a lot about that.
Go ahead.
So, if you look at your insurance rates, they don't go down till you're 25. So maybe we should limit firearms. It just went from 18 to 21 in some states. I'm not saying an 18-year-old can't responsibly handle it. And assault weapons, I remember when I left the military, they weren't as widespread. I knew they could be very dangerous. So you'd have to have such a high threshold to have an assault weapon. We don't have to say maybe with the ban, but the tests, the clearance, government exams, your background check, we have to be so extreme to get those type of weapons. That's a practical solution.
Right.
It's a red flag if you see a young person with an M16 at a shooting range, and a lot of these tragedies will cause, it shouldn't happen. It should be stopped way before that.
Right.
So gun control is definitely necessary, of course.
Roe v. Wade. And the overturning.
Knew you were going to ask me about that.
All right.
So the states handle that, okay? Right now, everyone has as much rights as they had before, but we're the thinking party. So what we're saying is, if you really want to solve that issue, before that young prospective mom and maybe the dad are involved in this moral conundrum, what got them there in the first place? What about your media? Didn't we talk about that? The media was much different. In the old days, you didn't even have cable. So we have a lot of bad information going out to young people. So it might be the schools. We talked about discipline. We have to realize there's a cost. Intimate behavior, there will be a cost and responsibility. That's your question. Then you won't have to worry about Roe v. Wade. Am I making sense?
I get it, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on schools. Maybe education reform. What do you think?
Quality versus quantity. We must fund the schools, but a lot of money. It comes down to discipline. Are the students serious? Do they want to be there? Are they doing their homework? Or what did I just tell you? Shut the TV off and read some books in quiet time. Bring a highlighter. Be focused. Those things will yield better education results than millions of dollars or billions thrown at the situation. And also give those students a good learning environment.
Right.
A good learning environment, a peaceful environment, a safe environment.
Again, with education, college, more affordable.
Yeah, you know what? There is some debate about the loan forgiveness. Let me tell you something. In the state of New Jersey, I'm sure in other states, we have competitive programs where if you get high grades and you're disciplined, you could actually go to community college for free. I think it's just called. So we can do that on a national level. I'm sure that they do that in other nations. So if you're a serious student and you're really performing, why not? Go to college for free. We need you.
All right. How about LGBT rights?
Excuse me?
LGBT?
LGBT, sure. I know many people in the past, my family. Again, we've come a long way. In this country, we don't discriminate against anyone. So I think that, we a lot of media play with that. I think we're okay with that. I think we're doing well with that.
Okay. I'll give you one more.
Give me 10 more.
Maybe I will. Let's
It's
see.
getting
Yeah. Police brutality.
Police brutality. Let me tell you something. I watched that incident right when COVID started. Me, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. I'm like, get that. You saw the video? Get that man. He might have been a police officer. He made other police officers look bad. He should have been, our federal authorities are great, should have been in handcuffs along the first day. We wouldn't have had these problems. Obviously, there was something, why we waited so long and debated it. Should we? Come on. And he was found guilty, right? Okay, so there you go. Common sense. Police are great people. They sacrifice. They put themselves, my number one there, son of a New York City detective, okay? They put themselves at risk. We support police. They don't want bad police people. It makes them look bad. Again, they have a certain threshold discipline. Those are good people.
What about benefits for veterans?
I think we're taking care of our veterans, as far as I know.
Okay. All right. Let's think about.
Although, good point.
Yeah.
We can never do enough. Because that's remember, with MacArthur said, the soldier, more than anyone else, practices the greatest act of religious training, sacrifice. So that they can never be rewarded enough financially. They should have zero interest loans, XYZ. Veterans, and depending on what kind of service they did, whether it was peacetime or not peacetime, then they either should get more. Yes, sir.
Right. Immigration. That's a big issue on the southern border. What do you think?
Immigration, it's an interesting system. If you look at the math, it's on what's going on in Japan, Italy, just saw South Korea as well. It's unfortunate, but in some nations, there are less children. So we need young people, obviously. If you look at retirees, young people living longer. So immigration is very important because if we don't have young people working and supporting the economy, that's not good. Now, again, what some of maybe you call the right wing might be saying is, listen, we have to do it in an orderly fashion. I think that makes sense because you have to understand that we are a great country, but economics, we have to make sure we're fair to the citizens that are already here. Can we afford to do all these things that we're promised? What we don't want is someone taking advantage of goodness, whatever that may be.
All right. Well, we always like to end on a little bit of a lighter note, so I'll ask you one last question.
I like lighter notes.
We talked about protecting the environment. and your love for animals. So,
Love them. Love
if you
animals.
were an animal, what would you be and why?
Love it. You came up with that question off the cuff. Well, I think probably, although while it's a serious issue. Like one of the things I got involved in was being against shark finning. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And elephants, for example, these are noble species.
Right.
Sharks have been around longer than dinosaurs. So these are very serious issues. And we need to revert back to maybe to Native American values, the people who were here long before any of the other people came. Live in harmony with nature, respect all wildlife. But me personally, I've had some experience with dogs, love cats too, but I think if you look at the sophistication and the kindness of a dog, then I think you would see a good model of behavior. Someone who, that dog just appreciates the good weather, the fresh air. And as you know, I especially like golden retrievers because I had the pleasure of raising one. Yeah.
All right. Well, I've been speaking to Louis Vellucci. Thank you very much for coming out
Call
today.
me Lou.
Lou.
You did a great job. You're awesome. You're awesome. Good for you, brother.
Thank you very much.
All your brothers. Great job.
For you.
Great job. Great job.